there's some logistical things I'll get out of the way before we get started with our speaker tonight. For those of you, there is anyone here who is not familiar with the Student Center, an important feature is right out that door to the left, there are restrooms. So that's something important to know. To assist us with the evening, I have a very special favor to ask of all of you in the audience, and that is that you take your cell phone out, and unless you're planning to take notes on it, and I know some people do, but if you're not, I want you to take it off and maybe turn it off and then put it away. And I want you to put it away both so your attention is not divided and so that the attention of people around you will not be disturbed. I'm sure Dr. Schatzel will be willing to let you take pictures at the end, right? If you want to snap some pictures, we can do it at that point. Each of you should have received a pink card as you walked in the door. Both honors and non-honors students are encouraged to fill that out. In fact, if you're not a student at all, please fill it out. That way we'll know who was here tonight, how many people were here. We try to keep in contact with folks. For the honors students, note that we will be, of course, giving you honors credit for being here and also entering you in a drawing for a free trip to Stratford next fall. And so the more Star Lectures you come to, the more likely it is it will be your card that will be pulled from that sack. We'll take up the cards at the very end of the evening tonight. If you're a non-honor student, you have two things to do. First of all, you mark that you're a non-honor student, and we will take care of the LBC credit for you. But if you are interested in the Honors College, just put on there, right on the front, I am really interested in the Honors College, and someone will contact you for that too. Please note that at the end of the lecture, well, there will be question and answer, I gather, throughout, but if you have questions at the end, I'm certain Dr. Schatzel will be happy to entertain some questions. And now it is my privilege to introduce our speaker tonight, Dr. Kim Schatzel, Provost and Executive Vice President of Eastern Michigan University. I have to tell you, I've been looking forward to this night for a long time. Dr. Schatzel came to Eastern in January of 2012 after serving as the Dean of the College of Business at the University of Michigan Dearborn. She joined the University of Michigan Dearborn in 2000, and there she held lots of different positions, starting as an assistant professor and ending up in the dean's office. Dr. Schatzel entered academia after having a really distinguished career in corporate America. That includes serving as the founding president and the chief operations officer, and later the chief executive officer for North America's largest powdered metal components manufacturer, a multinational industrial firm that employed over 1,500 people on four continents. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I think we would all agree. As provost, Dr. Schatzel is a tenured professor in the College of Business. She's a professor of marketing. And she has taught at undergraduate, graduate, and executive levels in the United States and internationally on topics such as new product development, new venture creation, high technology marketing, and management of technology. As Provost and Vice President, she leads Eastern's Division of Academic and Student Affairs and its more than 200 degree programs in 5 different colleges. And as Provost, she is the person who is the strongest supporter of the Honors College, I think, on campus, and we're very, very grateful for that. I'm personally excited for tonight's lecture entitled Leadership, Style, Situations, and Self. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kim Schatzel.
Thank you, Becky. I also want to thank John Topkamp, who's standing over there, who is the person behind the scenes who often makes all of these events be so successful. So, John, I want to give a shout out to you. I was really excited when Becky asked me to do this lecture tonight. The Honors College, the students, as well as just the series itself is very near and dear to me. The Star Lecture Series is important because of the fact that it's an opportunity for us to come together as a campus to learn from others that are on the campus, but we also bring people that are from outside the campus. So it's not just for honor students, it's for the campus community, our alumni, and various other people that will be interested in the topics that we're talking about. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about some of the experiences that I have One of the things, how many show of hands that were here for the last lecture series with Dr. Neff? Okay, I got to share something with you. I heard that she knocked it out of the park with that lecture, right? And when I heard that Dr. Neff, I was following her, I got a little nervous about the schedule and the agenda. But I know she sets the bar really high, so I just want to give a shout out to her in terms of a wonderful job with the last lecture, and I hope to live up to the standard that she set tonight. I'm going to be a little informal. I've actually never tried this setup in terms of talking to folks, but since it's going to take about, we're going to be here for a while, I thought I would try it. I actually saw it done maybe about 2 weeks ago, and it was pretty successful. So I'm going to try this slowly and put it down and then sit down. Okay, so far successful. And we're able to do it. So I'll be getting up, I'll be sitting down, but the big thing that I want to be able to talk to you about is the fact that much of what we're going to be talking about tonight, you're going to see is pretty commonsensical. What I'm going to be talking about tonight is I was asked to talk about leadership. And how I started this was really thinking about the fact of what did I want to talk about? Did I want to talk about theory of leadership? And although I've studied the theory of leadership quite a bit, that's not what it's going to be about. What I'm really going to talk about is the lessons that I've learned about leadership from various people that I've worked with and for, as well as the experiences that have taught me about leadership. So there might be sprinklings of theories in there, but this is really about my experiences that I've had working with and for others, and the experiences that I've had as a leader myself. I'm going to be talking for probably about an hour, but I'm not just going to be a talking head. I've got video clips and all sorts of stuff that we're going to take a look at. And then I'm going to make sure to leave about a half an hour for question and answer. So if you have questions as we go through, just realize that there's going to be question and answer that's going to be available at the end of this. I love hearing questions from students, and everything is just, everything's on the table, so feel free to be able to ask me anything that you want in terms of anything we talk about tonight, anything about the university, or about my job itself. So feel free to be able to just ask me everything that you wish. So now I'm going to take a minute and just pull up another document. And before I start, there's just one really important thing that I have to do. I don't know if you all realize that I tweet. Yeah, I know I don't look like a person who tweets, but I do. In fact, Red follows me and a number of other people do. So I want to take a picture of all of you so I can tweet it. And right now I have about 900 followers, and I figure there's about 200 people here. So if you go to @Schatzel and then follow me, I can get a big increase in my clout score over the next few days. So let me take this picture. Okay, everybody smile. Okay. Who was ready? You weren't ready? Okay. As you can see here, this is my first thought about leadership. As you can see, this is a guy who's standing there being yelled at by somebody else with a microphone. And they're telling him that I'm the leader, you need to follow me. And that's really the first lesson that I want you to take away this evening, is that you cannot proclaim yourself to be a leader. At least I don't think that. You can be named a boss, but you cannot be named a leader. It's a role that the people have to give you. So someone else is declaring you a leader. Usually, we think of a boss as someone who's given authority by an organization. But we listen to bosses because they're given command and control responsibility. Their job is pretty varied. They prioritize our tasks. Basically, they tell us what to do if you're the boss. They set work rules, what time you have to be there, what time you can take lunch, can you take a break in the middle of the day, maybe what you wear. They tell you maybe even how to do your job based on what the organization wants you to do and how they want you to do it. We got a little bit of feedback, which we shouldn't. You think it's the air conditioning? Okay, we've all decided it's the air conditioning. We had a group vote and decided that's what it is, so we're gonna pass, we're gonna move on. Okay, so going back, bosses versus leaders. Leaders, you can't declare yourself a leader. You just can't wake up and say, I'm the leader of this organization, of this group of people. I can't be assigned to be your boss though, and that's often what happens. And bosses, as I said, set priorities for you. They tell you how to do your job, and they'll set work rules. They'll offer praise about how you did. But a leader is something else. A leader goes beyond just being a boss, and that's really important to be able to understand. A leader is someone who develops enthusiasm in you for the work that you do. A leader develops the skills of the people that they work with. They coach you. They care about your potential. They want you to improve. And usually if you work with a good leader, you'll develop a shared sense of purpose so that the work isn't just about showing up every day, but that you feel you're connected, that there's some consequence to what you're doing. When this happens, it's important to be able to be a part of it. You feel as if you're doing something with other people for something that's more than just the task at hand. So the very first leadership lesson that I want to share with you tonight is your title or your rank in an organization means nothing. People you work with will decide if you have earned the privilege of being called their leader. It needs to be earned. The next thing I want to talk about is, I have to be inspired like anybody else in terms of leadership. And there's a place that I go, and a place that I want to tell you to go, someone you might want to look to for leadership lessons and some tips on leadership. And it's someone that you might recognize. Yeah, I can tell you, you can learn a heck of a lot from Michael Scott. So why don't we see what he has to say? You gotta love them. In case you might not realize, humor is actually very important to me. And it's a big, big part of my leadership style. And hopefully the people that I work with will also tell you that humor is a big part of how I work with them every day. Humor makes the day go easier. Humor makes us realize that sometimes we just might be taking ourselves a little too seriously. Humor also provides the opportunity for you to give the other person a break. Humor is a very important part of being a leader. Now, I'm not saying that we don't take our work seriously, because we do, but I especially use humor during stressful times to diffuse the stress that an organization has. Studies, in fact, have shown that using humor to diffuse stress is very, very effective. In fact, remarkably effective. It provides the fact that you can, in fact, endure stress or be able to experience stress in a more effective way. And it's not just about you as a leader, but those that work with you develop a capacity to work effectively during stressful conditions. I also use humor to show folks that I trust them when I work with them and enjoy their company. So it's very important to be able to talk about humor as part of what we do every day. And many studies have shown that with CEOs, as well as government leaders, as well as those leaders of nonprofits or institutions of higher education, that having a sense of humor and being known for it is a characteristic that makes them a more attractive leader to the people that they work with. So again, I'm not saying the fact that we don't take our work seriously, but a sense of humor is a very, very important character trait for a leader to develop. So lesson number 2, funny is a good thing. And it's a trait for a leader to have and to encourage with the folks that they work with. What I thought I would do now is take a few moments. The screen is bothering me a little bit, so if you see me go like this, it's not because of the fact that you guys are bothering me. I'm just checking the screen out, so I apologize if it's distracting. But I thought I would take a few moments to share with you a little bit about how I got to be sitting here talking to all of you about leadership, what kind of path that I had and lessons that I might have learned. Yeah, and it's okay for you to laugh, because that's not actually a picture of me. It was chosen totally because of its pretty amazing funniness, and that's why it starts there. But I can tell you that I was born about 60 years ago, and I can tell you that's getting increasingly difficult for me to say. And I was born and raised in New York City. I often describe myself as a city mouse. I was raised around streets and alleys in New York City, playing with kids from many of the blocks around us. And that taught me a very valuable lesson. It taught me how to play with, and later to work with, lots of different types of people. It provided me with lifelong skills of how to get along with people, how to respect differences in them, as well as how to work through challenges that we might be able to have. I was the second in my family to go to college. My older brother went before me. I went to Washington University in St. Louis, which is really far from New York City. It was a big shock to me, both culturally and socially, as I had never been west of Pennsylvania before. And for those that know people from the East Coast, we describe them as the big square states. They all kind of look alike after you go past Pennsylvania. And I had never been west of Pennsylvania. And I can tell you, New York City was definitely not St. Louis. But I also got to meet students from lots of different places, lots of different backgrounds, and lots of different interests. And that's what college is all about. And as many of you are doing by coming here to Eastern, you're stretching yourself. You're taking yourself out of your comfort zone. You're meeting people that you typically wouldn't meet if you had stayed where you were raised, which you considered to be your first home. That act of taking yourself out of the comfort zone is, in my mind, a very important part of developing yourself as a leader. So I'm going to advise you, just don't do things that you're comfortable with. Just don't do things that you like. Do things that you're not so good at. Do things that also make you feel a bit uncomfortable. It'll stretch you, it will develop you as a person, and it will prepare you to be a better leader. Family is also a really big part of my life, and this is my family. My husband, my 2 kids in the middle, and my daughter-in-law is there on the left. We really like her a lot, so it worked out okay. A lot has been written about whether women can or cannot have a career and a family. In my mind, that is totally, totally wrong. It is up to the woman to decide. If you want both, you can have it. Just pick the right partner, expect you will have an unbelievably busy life, expect that you will feel guilty about not being at home when you're at work, and expect the fact when you're at work, you're going to feel guilty about not being home. But it is well worth the effort to have both if you so choose to. I also want to take the opportunity to kind of give a public shout out to my husband who's here tonight, who doesn't know I'm going to do this. I've been married to him for 31 years. His name is Trevor, and he's been a great partner to me. So I want to take the opportunity to totally embarrass him and go, "Hey Trev, how are you?" When I graduated from college, my very first job was a second shift trim foreman at Ford Motor Company making Pintos. So that kind of ages me. This was in the 70s. I was a foreman, as they did not have gender neutral titles back then. I was a foreman. Today they call those people production supervisors. Well, you can imagine this is my first job out of college. I was kind of nervous. I graduated, got the job. It was a management training position. My first assignment was in the manufacturing plant. So I showed up for my first day at work, met with HR, they processed me through, and then I went to my boss's office. My boss was the plant superintendent. So all the foremen reported to the plant superintendent, who also was a guy. Well, I sat down across the desk to meet with them. I was expecting words of wisdom, what I was going to be doing, what I needed to show up, what were the work roles, how I was going to get acclimated, what were my first job responsibilities. So I was really earnest and wanting to do a good job. Well, my boss started the conversation by telling me that it was unnatural for me to want to be a foreman. For a woman to want to be a foreman was unnatural. It's the first thing he told me. The second thing he told me was that I was taking a job from a man who really needed it. So those were the first things that I learned from my very first boss when I graduated. I can tell you that 4 years later, I was his boss, so things kind of worked out fine. I also want to tell you that one of the lessons to learn from that is never be a jerk. If you're a boss or a leader, you must always treat those that you work with respect. Never take advantage of your position. Always make sure that you are not a jerk. I've been amazed over the past 40 years or so of working how many bosses that I've watched or how many folks that have been higher up in the food chains of organizations have actually acted like jerks for the people that they've worked with or for. So this is the third lesson of leadership. Try really, really hard to never be a jerk. That is, treat people each and every day the way you would like to be treated. Position means nothing. Always treat people with respect. Well, I was in business for about 15 years, and as Dr. Sipe shared, I was pretty successful as CEO of a company I founded that was the largest of its kind in the U.S. We had offices on 4 continents, and I had over 1,500 employees. But after 5 years of building that company, I have to tell you, I was totally burned out. I was working 60, 70 hours a week, 7 days a week, and really working to be able to build a company and put it together. It was successful, but I had reached the end of what I was able to offer to the firm. And if you can't give 110%, which I couldn't at that time in that position, as the CEO, you need to step down, because it's really the fact that you need to role model and you need to be the one that's working hard to be able to bring it forward. So when I knew I couldn't give 110%, I knew that I could not stay in the position of CEO, so I stepped down. After I stepped down, I served on some corporate boards and nonprofit organizations, and then I decided to get my PhD in marketing from Michigan State University. People have asked me, how did you think of doing that? And I can tell you the fact that I didn't have an epiphany. It wasn't like I woke up one morning and said I wanted to get a PhD and go into academics. I often say the fact that if The Voice or American Idol was on, I might have tried out for one of those at the time. But because that wasn't an option for me, I started to take a look at other things. I realized I didn't want to start my own company again. I didn't really want to work for anybody else again. I was really good at school when I was younger, and I realized that I had that itch I wanted to scratch again. And one of the interesting things about academics is the fact that it's very, for lack of a better phrase, entrepreneurial. You can actually decide what you want to study, and what I study is new product success. So I try better to understand why certain companies are really, really good at introducing new products versus other ones. So it was very attractive to me to be able to get into doing something that I could be entrepreneurial and decide what I wanted to work on. Also, the other thing that was really interesting to me was to be able to work with people in terms of being able to get educated. I felt that education transformed my life. I still feel that education transforms lives. And so have the opportunity to work with students and with faculty to be able to develop curriculum and to be able to do research and scholarly work seemed like a great fit. And in fact, it turned out that it was. I've been blessed to have a career that I've loved in academics as well as in business. So it's wonderful to have 2 careers that you feel a strong passion for. Soup. I came to Eastern Michigan as the provost almost 3 years ago and feel very, very fortunate to be part of such a historical and important university that has the bestest students, faculty, and staff, bar none. We all are blessed to be part of this institution, and I look forward to making it a better place of working with you all to make it a better place. Your student experience is what this is all about, and we enjoy working for you and with you every day to be able to do that. Oh, sorry that I put that in there. This is Emma. Emma is my son and daughter-in-law's dog. I just included her picture as she is just so extra special cute that I wanted to let you see what she looked like. And I had visited them this weekend. There's always a lot of talk about management versus leading. And I want to make it clear that I think leaders need to do both. So leaders need to be able to manage. I have a quote that I often use around my office and with the folks that I work with that says, management is doing things right and leadership is doing the right things. So let me say that again. Management is doing things right, leadership is doing the right things. So it's all about being a competent, effective manager, getting the job done, but it's also about setting the priorities for your organization, making sure what values your organization has, and advancing those priorities as well as those values. So you need to be able to do both. So you need to be reliable and competent as a manager, but you also need to have vision and to be able to set the right priorities for your organization. Those are the two things that are necessary to be a good leader. Some of the worst bosses I've ever had were memorable because of the fact that they were not good leaders. They did not set the right priorities for me and my colleagues, or even worse, they didn't set any at all. They would just let us flounder in terms of being able to understand what the priorities we should be dealing with. So in order to be able to manage, you need to be both. So let's talk about being reliable and competent. As you heard, I was the Dean of the College of Business at the University of Michigan, Dearborn. And one of the things that I did as Dean is I would travel around to meet alumni in different cities. When I would get the chance to visit them, I would talk with them about if they were looking for certain people to hire from my college. So if we were graduating accountants or marketing people or finance people, would they be interested in hiring them for careers at their institution or at their corporation? I'd also talk to them about internships, because our students wanted to get internships at various places, so I'd talk to them about that. I would also talk to them about possible funding opportunities. We might have initiatives at the college that as donors they might want to support. So I would visit with them and talk about those three things. On this certain trip that I had to Chicago, I met with an alum of ours who was a banker. And we started talking about the type of skill sets that they were looking to be able to have in the people that they were hiring. Because I was interested in that because I wanted to make sure that our graduates had it. And he described to me an employee of his. It was a woman that was an accomplished MBA from the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School. She was really smart, there was no doubt about that. She was very well educated. She worked really hard on the tasks that were assigned to her, but the problem that he said that she had was she just couldn't figure things out. She didn't have project management skills, and she lacked critical thinking skills. And those are two of the skills that you need to make sure that you develop while you're here, and as well as going forward, to be reliable, competent managers. Let's talk about what he meant by project management and critical thinking skills. The first is that he described the fact that she could not deal with ambiguity. If it wasn't clear what the task was, if there was gray areas, if there was somewhat of a lack of clarity in terms of his instruction, she couldn't manage through that. She couldn't ask the right questions. She couldn't seek solution for it. So uncertainty was not something that she was comfortable with. She could not determine how to take a big project, getting from here to here, and breaking it into subtasks so that they were more manageable and they were more easy to follow through on. And finally, she was not very adaptive and did not have multiple ideas on how to complete the tasks that she was assigned. And whether it's nonprofits, corporations, commercial ventures, government agencies, startups, or really big companies, the ability to manage and consequently lead is very much based on a person's ability to project manage and think critically. How many of you have heard of this company called Google? Oh, a couple of hands. That's very good. A couple of hands. Well, Google is famous for its hiring process. Has anybody heard about Google's hiring process and what they do? Well, let me tell you what they do. They do not hire people for what the people can do. So they don't hire people for what they can do, what skill they specifically bring. What they do is they hire people by how good they are at figuring things out. After all, Google strives to be a company of innovation and imagination. And to be great, they need to have talent that is good at innovation and imagination and figuring things out. So they go after that kind of talent in the people that they hire. Google interview questions include open-ended questions that have no answer. The purpose of the question is to see how you would figure the question out. Not what the right answer is, but how you would figure out, possibly, to answer the question. How you would tackle a problem that you'd never seen before. So here's a Google interview question. The question is, how many piano tuners are in Canada? Now, if you know the answer to that, keep it to yourself. So what I'd like you to do is, let's take a couple of minutes, and I want you to think about 4 questions that you would ask in order to answer this question. And you can only ask 4 questions. So let's take a minute to be able to see what you would come up with. And you can talk to your neighbor, that's fine, it's not text. Okay, are we ready? Yeah? Okay. So who wants to go first? Red?
So we decided we need to know how many pianos there are in Canada.
Okay, so we got one question. We need to know how many pianos there are in Canada. Next question. How many piano stores there are in Canada? That's another question that somebody had.
How many piano tuners are in Canada?
We'll work on it. Okay? Well, what's funny is what Google often says happens is that the first thing that people do is they just throw up their hands about how ridiculous this question is, and they don't even try and go forward on it. Or they'll do things like, Does that include all the piano tuners that might possibly be tuning a piano? They try and, narrow it down. So let's kind of keep going. So we've got how many piano stores, how many pianos in Canada? Where do most piano tuners live and work at? How many pianos does the average tuner service? In a year. In a year. What classifies someone as a piano tuner? Is it a mechanical thing? Is it or a person?
How many people can you teach how to tune a piano?
How many people? Now let's get back to the question. How many piano tuners are there? We've got some philosophy majors in here, I can tell. Okay.
Wait, I think piano tuner is an actual person.
It is. A piano tuner is an actual person. Yeah. Okay, so how long does it take to tune a piano? Okay. To get out of tune. So how frequently does a piano need to be tuned? Okay. Brandon?
Does the task at hand require a piano tuner, or can it require someone who frequently plays the piano, who knows how to tune the piano to the correct tune that you are looking at?
Yeah, whatever he said. It's fine. Okay, so let's see what the 4 questions are. Some of, and I think we've got all of them. First question is, and these are not in any order. How often does a piano need tuning? Who asked about how often a piano needs tuning? There you go. Okay. Once a year, twice a year, because it's telling you the frequency of when it needs to happen. The second, how long does it take to tune a piano? Because if it happens once a year and it takes an hour, we know that we need an hour of piano tuner time per year. How many pianos are in Canada? And then that will have us say how many hours a year does a piano tuner work? So you're going to figure out how much the capacity that you need of hours of piano tuner, figure out how many hours a year a piano tuner works, and then you'll have the number of piano tuners. Now the whole point to this is it's doing one thing. It's estimating. It's approximating. It's getting closer to an answer than we were before. Doesn't mean it's the right answer, doesn't mean it's the exact answer. But it's allowing for us to be able to start problem solving by using critical thinking to be able to project manage and be able to start advancing on completion of the task. And that's what a reliable and competent manager needs to be able to do. Because this is an ambiguous task. There's no right answer here. So you have to figure out the questions that will take you closer to that right answer, rather than look for the exact right answer. So this is part of what the process is. That's pretty good. That's good. This next video is a little lesson that I want to show you on project management. It's intended to be tongue-in-cheek, but I think all of you will appreciate it, particularly after the exercise that you went through on project management. Let's see if you experience any of these things at the places that you've worked with, or in groups that you might have worked on projects with.